Hi everyone, it's great to be back with you today. This is the Onelife Young Adults Book Club, and we are reading Keep Your Love On by Danny Silk. We just last month did the first half, and this week we're moving on to the next bit. Helen, do you want to tell us a little bit about what this one's about?
Yes, we've been loving this. So it's all around connection, communication and boundaries. So last month, as Eva said, we were doing connection. This month we've been reading all about communication and boundaries. And I know for both of us, we are loving this book. It's very, I think it's really challenging. It's quite practical, and just quite exciting to be able to read it together. So yeah, we're just finishing it off now, and then next month we'll have a whole new book, which is very exciting. But we just want to share really a few quick thoughts on what we've been thinking about with this, and we'd love to hear as well what you've been thinking about. So if you want to comment below or send us a message, we'd love to hear that, because it's just really cool to hear kind of what God's speaking to people about through these kind of books. Eva, do you want to share a few things we were chatting about that really stood out to you?
Yeah, so in this, there's so much good stuff in it. It's much more, I thought, a little bit more practical, and he used some good diagrams to kind of explain what he was saying, which I always enjoy. And in the chapter on levels of intimacy, Danny talks about how we have different circles of people within our lives, those who we let right into the centre of us, and those who we don't so much. And he talked about how we can choose to say yes and choose to say no, to kind of stepping into those relationships with different people we come across. And he talked particularly about how often saying yes to something means that we have to say no to other things, and that actually saying no to somebody else is actually just choosing to affirm our greatest priorities within our lives, those that we've chosen to give our greatest yes to. I think often within the church at the moment, we have got quite good at learning that sometimes no is a powerful answer, no is a good answer. Saying no to people's demands or asks of you can be a good thing, but actually more widely within the secular world and the corporate space, this isn't something that's so widely discussed or thought about, but I think as Christians this is something we can take into our workplaces and into our relationships with those we meet out and about in society. And I loved that ultimately Danny says that we have to say no to everything but Jesus, and that actually he is our biggest yes, our one greatest yes, and that allows him, we need to choose to allow him into the very centre of us, all our thoughts and our desires with him. And I just thought it was so interesting that he said that actually loving him well and having him at the centre of us means that we are actually equipped with the wisdom and given the teaching to love others well. So that's almost a bit ironic that saying no to everybody else will actually mean that you can love them better. Yeah, and I think the enemy often uses this to test us, but actually that's something that God uses to make us more powerful. And that when we love Jesus first, we're better equipped to love others better. So yeah, that was my kind of big takeaway.
I love that.
Yeah.
So good. Like actually saying yes to Jesus does mean sometimes saying no to other things, but it can be really hard, can't it, to say no, and it can feel like it's not very loving, but actually ultimately it's more loving to be able to say a good yes to Jesus, and kind of boundary that. I love that. Yeah, I love that bit. I think the other bit that really stood out to me is this bit's obviously a lot about communication, and with that comes conflict. We talk about that, and I love, he talks about actually when you're in conflict how you kind of phrase even what you're saying, and he gives some really practical tools. And he talks about how in a moment of conflict our responsibility is to communicate about ourselves and actually how we're feeling, and actually it's a lot more vulnerable really to kind of in that moment of conflict to say, actually, do you know what, I feel this, I need this. It's a lot easier to say, you've done this, you're so rubbish, all of that, and kind of go off on them and let it be about them rather than own kind of what you're feeling and saying what you're needing. But actually in that moment actually saying, do you know what, right now this has happened, I feel like this, what I need is this. And that's something I definitely try and practice. I don't always get it right, but I do. Yeah, it's something that I found really helpful actually in kind of different moments of conflict. And actually it really disarms people, I think, when it's not on the attack. It's saying, you know, this is how I feel, and I'm going to own how I feel, and I'm just going to tell you that, and it's up to you what you do, rather than putting it on someone and telling them what to do. So I think this book is just brilliant for kind of communication and conflict stuff. If you're looking for something to read around that, this is so helpful for me, particularly. So that's kind of just a few things. There are so many more things that we could talk about in this book that we've both found really helpful, but would really recommend it. It's really, really helpful. Connection, communication, boundaries, all of those things are covered. And we're going to be doing another book next month, which will be fantastic. So we'll put up another poll on our Instagram and you'll be able to vote for it. If you've got any suggestions as well of books that you think would be fantastic for the book club, we would love to hear those. So please do either comment them or send us a little message. We'd love to hear. And again, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a privilege to get to do this with you guys. And we hope you found this useful. Lots of love from us.
See you soon.